took me 3 cracks to get my license as a 16-year-old. Would you believe that in the first 2 attempts, I was speeding both times? It's an automatic fail. And that's hard to do in a small town in Saskatchewan. There are barely any stop signs. What was I doing? And then I'm thinking about this wonderful Prius that you guys just showed. Great car. I'm like, what was your first car? My first car was a 1970 LTD with a 400 cubic inch motor. We could put 11 people in that car to go to the drive-in. So everybody would throw in like $3 or $5, just enough gas to get you there and get you back, and smuggle in whatever you needed for your snacks and your beverages.
I would like to pace off your LTD in my 1983 Buick LeSabre because it would have given that one a run for its money.
I will raise you a 77 Pontiac Le Mans V8 shit brown. It was quite
But that's
a
a cool rig.
That's a sports car, at least.
Yeah,
that's a sports.
You don't even. You're not in this conversation.
I'm not even in the conversation.
No.
All right.
No.
Okay. Moving right along, quite an injury-front day for the Vancouver Canucks. Dregs. Steve Buium, Brock Boeser, both hurt in the game against Pittsburgh. What can you tell us?
Well, if we start with Buium, I think we all saw it, the shot to the face. Best case scenario is, I think, probably a week, maybe 2 weeks. But that's upon further review and getting through all the medical work to see what's going on there. That was a scary injury. And so there's still some evaluating, but I think minimally you're looking at 10 days to 2 weeks. As for Brock Boeser, again, an unnecessary play, a dangerous play by Brian Rust, who isn't normally that type of player for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but as Ray Ferraro called it, it's an elbow to the back of the head, back of the neck, right? An unsuspecting player. There's going to be supplemental discipline applied there. I think the early indication looks as we might expect. I'm not a doctor, not part of the medical crew of the Vancouver Canucks, but I think the suspicion is a concussion. And if that's the case, then who knows how long that's going to take to heal.
Yeah, and
this team, honestly.
Well,
yeah, can't get rid of the injury issues.
Well, they were actually getting healthier, though, right? Like we were talking about. Oh, look at this, full health or close to full
down
health.
the middle, almost there.
Of course, outside of the goaltender Dregs, and full disclosure, as we record this, Canucks set for an 11 a.m. Pacific time practice. So we'll see what Adam Foote has to say after practice, because the province reported on Friday that we are expected to get clarity on Thatcher Demco this week, whether he can play again this season or whether he'll be shut down. And the paper said that could come as soon as today. But what are you hearing, sir?
Yeah, the province doesn't need me to apply an accuracy stamp to their reporting, but that's correct. That's my understanding as well. And so let's just play the what-if game. What if they do shut him down for the remainder of the year? If they do, then clearly he needs some sort of additional work. Perhaps a procedure is included. But if it allows Demko to one more time eradicate a problem, and right near the top of the list is pain. If he gets to a place following whatever treatments they are taking here, whatever that path looks like, which we'll learn from the Vancouver Canucks at some point, not today, this week, and he's pain-free to go into the off-season training and getting healthy and getting strong again, then I think you do have to look at it as being a positive story, right? The Vancouver Canucks are in a position where they're not bringing in help. If there's a trade that makes sense whereby you get a young NHL player or a prospect or a draft pick, okay, that's all part of the plan for the remainder of this year. But everybody knows if they could finish last overall, that would be a good thing for the Canucks as an NHL club here based on where they're situated. So why wouldn't you take advantage of the calendar, take advantage of the timeline? And if the prognosis is that whatever they plan to do is going to help Thatcher Demco get pain-free and get healthy and back in the net in time for the start of next year, then that's what they have to do, and I think that's what they will do.
And is this supposition here that it's going to solve all the issues? Like it's going to solve the Popliteus part as well? Like it's sort of, the reporting made it sound like it was all connected, and if they do this, it's going to clear it all up?
Nah, I mean, I think that's wishful thinking. You know, you do have to look back at Thatcher's medical history here that dates way, way back, pre-NHL days, right? Like this guy, he's been through some stuff, and he always finds a way to come out the other side. You know, he is a gamer, he's a fierce competitor, but no different than most structural injuries, right? One lends to the other. You know, you can fix the knee, but then the other knee starts to go a little bit because of the stress on that knee. And oh, by the way, your knees are bad, and now your hips are bad, and that, you know what I mean? Like one thing just kind of goes. So I'm certainly not going to be the guy that because we don't have the physical or the medical evidence the Vancouver Canucks are looking at, nor are we in conversation with the surgeons who are going to deal with this latest issue and sell hope that this will get him back on the ice. The way it was more or less described by me, by someone not really that close, but familiar with the situation, was, again, the hope is that they correct what his significant issue is, and most importantly, allow him to be pain-free, which might help him work through whatever else might be lingering moving forward.
It's sort of the Jack Eichel theory that he wanted to go down the more difficult road, but take care of it maybe once and for all versus, you know, something short term that gets you back, but not really back. Right. So
I think so. That's why I look at it again, given where they're at in the standings, what the plan is for this year. Why wouldn't you do that? And not just because it's Thatcher Demco and we can see that this guy is a legit, you know, he's a star goalie when he's healthy in the National Hockey League. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. That's the reality. But whether it's Thatcher or if it's another player who needs some work, get it done.
Marco Rossi. They said about Marco Rossi, they said he's working on something that we want to make sure it doesn't get worse. So, again, there should be no rush.
We are in that time of year. We are in that time of team evolution, right? That if you can shut down guys and fix things for the long term, that makes an awful lot of sense.
Well, especially when you look at the schedule, too, here, guys, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're last in the NHL or you're the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, the schedule that these players are enduring is ridiculous. It is. And everybody, nobody's making excuses. It's the same for everybody, but it's the same for the Vancouver Canucks. So these players aren't going to magically get healthy with the remaining games.
Have you heard anything more on that? They want to go to 84 games, obviously. They're going to go to 84 games. Like in these years where they have a World Cup or an Olympics, have they learned the lesson that maybe we start the season a week and a half earlier than this, and so we don't have it compressed like this? Like, has there been lessons learned, do you think?
Yes, but whether or not they're going to act off the lessons learned is another conversation entirely. 84 games, sure. I know that there are many NHL owners who would like to use the last two games of that 84-game schedule as play-in. You know, let's have some fun. Let's create a buzz around the NHL. So you still play an 82-game regular season, but maybe there's heightened importance on those two, games remaining to get you to 84 so that there are more eyeballs on the sport. Anyway, I shouldn't even talk about it because that's not reality. An 84-game regular season is, but the idea of building a spectacle around those final two games, which has been suggested by owners, isn't going to pass the sniff test of Commissioner Bettman, along with the changing of the playoff matrix and going to conference seeding. So, they're going to play more. It's just they're going to have to start earlier because they can't go later than they do, but they're not going to change as late as they go anyway. So you have to start earlier in some capacity. And that's where you get pushback from the players, though, too, right? And this has all been talked about and agreed to in collective bargaining. Players don't want to give up more time of their summer, man. They're sitting there going, no, we worked, especially coming off an Olympic year where they've been put through a meat grinder this year. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, and I believe your colleague, Mr. LeBrun, has detailed some of this in the past in his reporting about the earlier start to the season. And I also think you're going to see load management be more of a thing in the National Hockey League, taking the cue from the NBA. Okay, let's get to Evander Kane, Dregs, because suitors identified, according to reports. Dallas, Colorado, what are you hearing?
Dallas for sure has some interest. I don't think there's any question about that. And part of me goes, okay, well, Glenn Gulletson is the head coach now of the Dallas Stars, and Gully would have been one of the whisperers in the ear of Evander, when he was playing his best for the Edmonton Oilers. So you can make that player-coach connection immediately. But I think it goes beyond this for the Dallas Stars. You're looking at a short window for a player who's going to be an unrestricted free agent. And the cost efficiency of Evander Kane, probably a mid-round draft pick. That's likely best case scenario, isn't it? If you get a third for Evander Kane, I think you're doing really, really well. So if you're the Dallas Stars, and you're looking at some of the other options that are in play, and you go from, with all due respect to Evander, to maybe the top of the food chain now, and that's Artemi Panarin and the New York Rangers. Well, you're giving up a first, you're giving up a prospect, and maybe something else for a rental player in Artemi Panarin, assuming he's willing to waive to go to the Dallas Stars. More and more owners are getting involved and telling their managers, okay, you hold the reins to this, but when do we stop throwing our top prospects and first-round draft picks at players in chasing a Stanley Cup? We all want to win the Stanley Cup, but is there any guarantee that Artemi Panarin is going to provide a higher level of game and chance of the Dallas Stars winning than, say, Evander Kane might? And we can't answer that because the naysayers of Artemi Panarin will go, heck of a player, but geez, you wish his playoff numbers of late would be just a little bit more encouraging. So, yeah, there's interest in Evander Kane. There's no doubt about that. Anything imminent? Now, I think it's still a whisker too soon to say that, but specific to the Canucks, they always have something going on. And I asked a good source earlier today, do you anticipate getting something, bigger, smaller done between now and the February 4th roster freeze? And, the message I got back was, yeah, there's a decent chance of that. So to be determined.
Yeah, and Dallas has traded out 2 of its next 3 first-round picks, and they've only made 1 first-round pick in the last 3 years. So I can understand why it's getting a little more difficult to bear there in Texas on that. Darren, Tyler Myers opened the door a sliver to a trade and waiving his no move last week. It caught some of us, I'll put myself in this category, by surprise, because I had always been told that Tyler and his wife very much value living here in British Columbia because the care for one of their children get. Like, they're 12-year British Columbians now too, right, with the place in Kelowna.
Yeah.
But it makes some sense because he's got a full no move now, so he can control the destination as opposed to the summer when he would be subject to trade on a limited no trade clause. What are you hearing there?
The summer would make more sense, absolutely, because you do have the restrictions more or less removed. I feel like Vancouver wants to do right by Tyler Myers, though. I mean, he's been a really good soldier for the Vancouver Canucks, so I think that they'll play ball with him if it gets to the summer. As we have this conversation, I know there's been no communication with JP Barry, who represents Tyler Myers, on the idea that they would ask him to consider waiving his no-move clause. And that's as we're having this conversation on January 26th. So the window is closing between now and the roster freeze, and then you've got a limited amount of time between the lifting of the freeze and March 6th. Not saying it can't happen, but and which teams are we talking about here, right? Tyler is probably showing he's being polite to the media and saying the right things, but if push comes to shove, at the end of the day, and it happens in season, it's going to have to be a destination of choice for Tyler Myers to even give it any consideration. Until they make that connection with JP Barry, it's too hypothetical to really go down that path. But the summer looks more likely to me.
Have you felt any pulse on the Elias Patterson file, which, depending on the day, gets a little flare up and then or a bucket of water poured on it? And he's still playing good. He's getting points, 2 out of 3 games sort of thing. Good defensive play. Once again, shut down Sidney Crosby. I mean, what do you think the Canucks mindset is at and the player as well?
Well, was it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? We talked about that on the podcast, on the show here. And the messaging I was getting at that point was that it was possible. Didn't say likely. It was possible based on communications, some interest. Sources around Carolina acknowledged that, yeah, they had some interest, maybe less than they've had in previous years, but still some interest. Reason to have talks with the Canucks. I checked on it over the weekend. That interest now is less than it was then. not just by Carolina, but generally speaking. So I'd put him in the category of unlikely. I don't know where we have him on the TSN trade bait board. I think last week I acknowledged that he's probably too high, and that might have been in the top 10. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't drop another notch. I mean, he's playing okay. He's playing fine, but you've got to have a partner to make a trade like that with a contract like that, and it seems unlikely at this stage.
All right, marvelous stuff, my friend. Thank you for this, Dregs. We got one more week here before the Olympic roster freeze, and then short runway to the trade deadline.
Yeah, a lot of
March
gasoline
6th
coming
after
here.
that. Thank you for this.
There'll always be something to talk about.